Hi everyone, my name is Carly Bell and I love to do machine embroidery tutorials. And today we are going to be continuing on our sew along journey to create the Kimberbell Main Street Celebration bench pillow. So today is video number 4, but we're actually starting the third block in the row on the bench pillow here, which is the general store. So if you missed any of the prior videos going over how to make this bench pillow, you can see all of the details on my website. It's the first link you should see in the description video, and it takes you to the info page for the sew along. It's going to give you all the info on the previous videos that were already filmed and the supply list, and where you'll find links to everything that I use in today's video. So block number 3 is actually the general store. And if you've watched the first 2 blocks, you've seen that I'm showing some different techniques on how you can create these blocks depending on what hoop size you are using. So with Kimberbell, with all of their products, almost everything can be made in a 5x7 hoop or larger. Larger comes in very handy in several of the blocks. It just makes life easier. But I know I had a machine for 6 or 7 years, and the largest embroidery field I had was 5x7. So I wanted to make sure that I did a tutorial showing you how to make this if you are working with a 5x7 hoop. So that's what we're going to go over today. We're going to show how we can make the general store block in several things. So this video is going to be a little bit longer because I'm going to show you how to add background quilting. That's going to be 2 hoopings. And then how to do the actual applique. That is going to be 2 hoopings. So disclaimer, if you are watching this video and you have a 6x10 hoop or larger, you can skip through the first bits of this video and fast forward to the part right where we actually start appliquing things, because everything uh, for the beginning will be the same for you as what we've done in video 1 or video 2, depending on what hoop size you're working with. Okay, so working in a 5x7 hoop, let's get started. So you are going to need your instructions. I have my free organizational chart that you can go download on my website. It's on the Main Street Celebration info page. That is the first link down below. You can go grab this for free. And then I have my envelope with all of my pre-cut pieces of applique, and I have my background fabric, my batting. I already took those out my envelope because I was playing with something. I have my 5x7 hoop. I'm using lightweight cotton muslin instead of poly mesh stabilizer. I think it works just as great and it's less expensive. And then the other thing you're going to need, because we're doing this in a 5x7 hoop, if you have the clear blue tile system, you're going to want to grab your 4x6 clear blue tile. If you don't have the clear blue tile system, I'm going to show you how you can print the background quilting design and kind of cheat with getting it done. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is get our background quilting ready. I was looking over this before I hit record on the camera to try to figure out how I'm going to do this, and I think I have an idea, and it's kind of combining clear blue tile with the block by block method that we have been doing. So this is going to be my own little tweak of these things, because I have my background quilting fabric already pre-cut to size, and I have my batting already pre-cut to size. So let me show you what I mean with the background quilting, and we'll use our fire station block as a kind of guide. So let's move over to the craft table now, and we will hoop that after. Okay, so there's our fire station block. All right, and today we're making the general store. So you see my batting's cut, it's to size. This one has a little bit extra going around it for our seam allowances, correct? So that is there. and ready to go. It's so pretty, by the way. I love it. Okay, and here is my batting. So with all the other projects hoopings we've done, we stitch out a line that shows us right where to put our batting. And then we just lay our fabric on top and it does the background quilting, and then we do the applique right on top of that. This time we're doing it differently because we need to first just stitch the background quilting, and that needs to be separated into 2 hoopings. And with our finished block right here, I could see that I can put this here. Let me just put my finger, and I can do 2 hoopings, and I will have this whole thing covered in background quilting. But notice here, like my position, I can just kind of wing it, but I want to be a little bit more precise. So I have an idea of a way to figure out how to line up our batting perfectly so that when I stitch this, my background quilting will end up right on top of that batting perfectly here and here. Okay, so grab your clear blue tile, or you can open up the 4x6 clear blue tile design on your computer, open it in Embroidery and click print, and it will print to size. And I just cut my piece of paper so that it's almost, right to the edge here where these crosshairs are, like right at the edge of my design. Okay, so have that ready. And now I'm going to show you my idea so that I get my batting and my design right where I want it to. So let's open up Embroidery, and 1 second. Okay, now y'all should see my computer and Embroidery. So right now I have the 4x6 clear blue tile. So let's look at the files again so that you can see what we're talking about here. Okay, so I'm in my embroidery designs, Kimberbell, Main Street Celebration. Okay, this is my applique designs. This is my border quilting. This is my regular quilting. Click that. Embroidery files or instructions. Let's go to embroidery files. This is where you have the choice of block by block or clear blue tiles. So what you can do is open up the clear blue tile, pick whatever format, and now look at the sizes and find the 4x6. Here we go. So that's the one that's opened right here. Okay. But I'm up, and you can print that out if you don't have the clear blue tile. I'm gonna go back and go to block by block and PES and 4x6. I'm gonna open that. All right, so this is what our block by block method has been doing. And we have several steps we've talked about in the previous videos for placement and tack down of batting, placement and tack down of background quilting, of the background fabric, and then the actual background quilting. So you'll notice with the clear blue tile, all you're getting is the background quilting. You're not getting any of those placement and tack down stitches. But the file itself looks the same. Let me change this to a 5x7 hoop. Okay. And so like when I click here, so that's the clear blue tile file. This is the background quilting block by block file. So you see, they're the same. Now I wanted to compare this to the actual background quilting we used if we were doing it in a 6x10 hoop. So here, let's zoom in. This is the 6x8 background quilting design. This is the one we've used on the past fire station block. But if you watch that video, you saw I tweaked this basting stitch so that it fit in the 6x10 hoop. what I wanted to do was compare this to this just to see how it's going to look. It's going to be a little bit different, but I think on my bench pillow, you're not even going to be able to tell. And then if you're working with a 5x7 hoop, all of your blocks will end up looking like this. But what I did was I grabbed this clear blue tile version, I copied it, and I pasted it right here, just using the copy and paste buttons. And so that's it right there. And I rotated it. I think when I came in, it was like this. Let's see. Yeah, this is what it looked like when I pasted it in. But you saw with my batting, I actually have to stitch 2 hoopings of this one. Let me back up a little bit. Let's see if it lets me. Let me turn the hoop off. How do I do that? H. Yes. Okay. So here's my background quilting with the stuff. And this is my clear blue tile. I'm just going to do this and I'm going to hit copy, paste. I'm just visualizing right now, guys. This is not what I'm sending to my machine. You can see this is what my block is going to end up looking like versus this. So it's similar, but not quite the same. Okay. And if I wanted to, I could rotate this design. Let's see how that looks. So I like that a little bit better. Because see how we have a spark and then a star? When I had it, you had these 2 stars right next to each other. So I think once I get it on the machine, I'm going to rotate one design so that it's like that. So I'm going to leave this on my computer so I remember that, how I like it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to stitch this design twice. But I really would like some sort of placement to help guide me on where I'm going to put my batting. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a variation. I'm going to go and open the block. So where am I? Instead of opening the clear blue tile, I'm going to open up the block by block. And I'm going to grab the 4x6. Okay. So that's the same as this, but I have these placement stitches. The only one I'm going to keep is the batting one. So this will get stitched right on my stabilizer or my muslin. And that's just going to help guide me where to put my batting. I'm going to delete this step, and this step so that I'm not worrying about tacking anything down. And wait, I just want to click delete on my keyboard. There we go. So just a batting placement stitch, and then the background quilting is going to get stitched on top. This is what I'm sending to my machine, and I'm going to stitch out 2 times. All right, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, just tell me in the comments and I'll try to explain it better. But yeah, that's my goal, is that I'm going to hoop my stabilizer. It's going to stitch a placement that's not going to be as big as my batting, but I'm going to use it to just to line up the 2 corners. And then I'm going to place my background fabric right on top. And then it's just going to stitch the background quilting here. And then I take it off and trim it, and then we'll rehoop and we'll do this. We'll turn and line up this side. So I don't even think I need any kind of marks at all. You may not need any of this. Let's try to do it without it. But just to tell you what you can do is you can use this or this, and you put it over where you want the stitching to be, and use a fabric marker of some sort, and you draw your arrows, and then I also kind of draw little lines here wherever there's a mark. I do all of that. If you're using the paper method, I would put it where I want it to go, and I'd maybe punch a hole in this with a thumbtack or a pin or something. where I could get my marker. I'd make some kind of hole right there so that when I push my marker on it, it will go through and end up on the fabric. And I could just mark my sides here, and I would mark my center. You can even punch little holes here and get you a good little crosshair in the middle. So you can manipulate this to kind of work like this. But I want to try my idea of not even marking it. The only thing I am going to do is mark my center of my batting. So I'm going to get my ruler. Okay. Now my batting's not perfect, but it's close enough. I just want the center line here and here. And I'm going to do the same for my background fabric. Because what I want to be able to do is line this up perfectly here. So I think what I'm going to do is draw some center marks. Let's see, this has half sizes. So this is what, 6.5 by, no, 8.5 by 10.5. Yep. So 8.5 would be 4.25. Am I doing that right? Yeah. So 4.25 by 5.25. Let's see if this helps me. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to have that placed, and then I'm going to fold my fabric right on my line I made here, and I'm going to do this. Like that. And then I'm going to flip this over. I think that's my plan. So then I know that my background fabric is perfectly centered on my batting, and I know my design is going to stitch right on my batting. So this is me tweaking things so that it works. Because the reason why I'm trying to make sure that this background fabric is perfectly centered on the batting is because when we're done with all of this, there is a step to figure out to make sure you place your background fabric perfectly on your hoop before it starts stitching the applique, so that your applique doesn't stitch off-centered or crooked or anything like that on your pre-cut background fabric. So that's why I'm being extra careful with all this. Okay, so now we can, I think that's all the prep work we need for the background quilting. And so I got my muslin. Gonna hoop. Make sure it's nice and tight. Okay. And now I just need to send my design over to my machine. Let's see if my Wi-Fi is going to work today, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to do MSC background quilting 4x6. There's an error. Let's see if it. No, it didn't send. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my USB stick and put it on there instead. So now I'm going to save my stitch file onto my USB stick, and I'm going to name it MSC BQ for background quilting 4x6. You can name it whatever you want. I got it saved as a PES file. Save. And now I'm going to eject my USB file and head over to my machine with my USB stick. Plug it in, give it a second, and then I'm going to hit the USB button on my machine. And here I could see my background quilting. Okay, it only has 2 steps. All right, so now it's ready to load, and I'm just going to go ahead and load white thread. This is going to be for both my placement stitch to show me where to put my batting, and then I'm using white thread as my background quilting. Okay. And I'm going to get my glue stick and possibly my spray adhesive ready for this particular block. Okay, I have to hit embroidery. Now I got a green light. Now this first step is just where to put my batting. And this is just me trying to get everything right where I want it. Okay, now we're going to take that out, and I can see right where my batting stitch line is, and we're going to go back to the craft table, and let's talk about this. So this is not getting stitched this way, it's getting stitched this way. So we're going to do 1/2 here, and then we unhoop it and do the other half like this. So I'm using really just these 2 corners here as a guide of right where to put my batting. And then I have marks on my batting and my background fabric so that I put the background fabric in the right spot. So I am put some glue there, and I'm lining up my batting there. Okay, now I'm going to put my background quilting, but I just need glue on this bottom half. I just want to make sure. In the past, I haven't put any kind of adhesive on the bottom on my background quilting, but this time I'm going to do it to make sure it goes right where I want. Okay, so I'm folding this right on my line that I made, just marking the center. And now I'm going to put that right on here. So now I think I have my background fabric right where I want it. Rub that into place, and that's it. And now we're going to go stitch the background quilting. So this seems pretty easy. This is the first time I'm doing this. So let's all keep our fingers crossed this is working out like I think it will in my head. All right, lower the presser foot, and now we will stitch the background quilting. And if you're wondering why I have all this extra muslin over here, when we're done and I trim it, I'm just going to use this piece to hoop my next spot. To me, it makes more sense just to have one piece and cut it or trim it as I go, as opposed to trimming it here right now, right outside my hoop. It gives you a little bit less waste when I do a continuous piece like this. But we're going to go ahead and wait for this background quilting to finish, and then we're going to repeat doing this on the other side. All right, the first step of the background quilting is finished. That was easy. So now we're going to go back to the craft table and we're going to trim this and get it ready to do again. So what we can do now is unhoop. And what I'm going to do is just trim right here. And then I can use my next piece for the next step. So I'm just basically trimming the stabilizer all around that first placement stitch that I did. Okay, so now we have the block half done. So now we're just going to repeat this half. It's pretty much the same process. So yeah, I'm so glad as we're doing this, I'm figuring out that we don't really need the clear blue tile or even a template printout. I think this is easy enough to do by kind of combining both the block by block method and the clear blue tile method so that we just get things lined up right. Okay, so if this stitched this way, when I turn it and do it this way, it's going to be that opposite orientation that I liked on my computer screen, where instead of being two stars right next to each other here, like this star and this star, we're going to have this spark here and this rocket here. I think I like the look of that better, but do whatever you think looks best. If you want to just take this and put it here and have it look, stacked right on top of each other, I think both ways are going to look great. All right, so now let's go back to the machine and we're going to, don't even have to load a new design or anything. We're just going to stitch this again. And stitch the placement stitch and then go set everything up. All right, take it back to the craft table. Okay, I have my placement stitch again. Add some glue. And now I don't have to worry about laying this right on top because it's already attached. Now I'm just lining up the batting corners with my placement stitch corners. That's what I want to get right. And just to help this stick a little bit better, I'll put a little bit of glue right here too. So now I'm gonna lay this right on top. And now we're gonna stitch the background quilting again right on top, and it's gonna look seamless. And now all of the background quilting is done. And I think that looks excellent. That came out really well. So I'm very happy with this. When I put it next to my fire station block, I think that looks great. So now all the background quilting is done, and we just need to send the applique design of the general store to the machine. And there's going to be some registration marks that we have to do. Now, to go back to Embrilliance, let's go back and look at the design, because now we need to get the actual general store design. Okay, so I backed up here to my main street celebration folder, and then these are the applique embroidery files. So go to open embroidery files, whatever format you want. Now, for the past couple videos, we have opened up the 6x10 versions because we were working in a 6x10 hoop. But today we're working in 5x7, so we need to go to this double hooping files. And now there will be 2 files per block. So this is the farmhouse. Both of those are the fire station, general store, pickup truck, swing, welcome. That's the first block we did. Welcome, and then windmill. Okay, so we're doing general store. So I need this block and this block on my USB stick. So all I'm going to do here is I don't even have to open them up in Embrilliance. I'm going to select both, hit copy, then go to my USB and click paste to items. And now they're there. But I am going to go ahead and open them. Let me eject my USB stick, and let's go back to embroidery designs, Kimberbell, Main Street celebration. Okay, back to where we started. Let's actually open these in Embrilliance so I could look at them. So there's one. So in the first hooping, we'll do just the house. And in the second hooping, we'll do the fireworks on top. So just the house. Let's talk about this. We have a first step is a placement. And that is going to help. That's going to be done on the stabilizer. And that's going to help us guide us right where to put our background fabric that is already quilted now. And then there is a basting stitch to help hold that down. And then it starts all the actual applique. So that's that one. Oh, wait, and I want to show you the last step is these are registration marks. These are marks that are going to help guide us for the next hooping. And so here we are for this hooping. It's going to do those same registration marks. And so that's going to be on the stabilizer. And then we're going to line up our block with the house already on it with these marks and then lay it down, and it will baste it and then stitch all the fireworks. So I hope that makes sense. But that is what we're doing now. But first, let's get this out the hoop and set it up and ready for the next. Okay. And now we're going to put this on the side. And now we just hoop. Let's see, I think I could get 2 hoopings out of this. Yeah. Piece. So hoop your stabilizer or muslin. And now we'll go to the machine with this and this. Let's look at the instructions too, so that you can see the placement situation. Okay. So they suggested that I cut my background fabric to be 8.5 by 10.5, right? So they know that's how big my piece is. They want to have it on a center fold, which, oh, I don't have my placement marks no more. because I covered them. So we have a center fold, and we're going to stitch some placement lines on here, and that's going to help me know right where to put this, where there's a 1-inch space here, or it might even be my batting might line up right there, and then you have an inch here, right? Yeah, you have an inch between your batting and your bottom. So I'm going to be lining up their registration marks with the center, and the bottom of my batting is the way that it's going to work out. So I just wanted to be prepared for that. So let's go stitch those registration marks. Now I have to go and pull up the design. Here. Set, embroider, and lower and stitch. And this is the placement stitch. And I could see it here, and I'm going to take this over to the craft table and line up my block to it. And what I'll do is go ahead and put some glue, just kind of a guesstimate. So it's funny because the first part of the block we're going to stitch this way, but the next part of the block, when we place it on there, it's going to go this way. Am I doing that right? I think so. All right, so we have it folded in half. There's my center mark, and this line is lining up with the bottom of my batting. And once I have that open, I could see my batting is going right along that line. And then I'm just gonna put that right where I want it. And it is gonna stitch a tack down. For that basting stitch, I'm going to use my water soluble thread so that it'll be easy to come out after, but they'll just do a real wide basting stitch just to make sure that this stays into place and everything. So let's go stitch that. And we also want to grab our envelope with all our applique pieces because we're going to start appliquing right after this. I now have my machine threaded with my water soluble thread, and I'm going to lower and stitch the basting stitch. The first bit of applique is going to be the foundation. I think I'm going to do all my placement and tack down stitches with this more goldy tan color so that I could see them well against the blue and not interfere with all my white background quilting. But with anything that is a satin stitch finish applique, you can use any color thread for the placement and the tack down because it's going to get covered up. And that foundation piece is a satin stitch finish. So let's go ahead and stitch the placement for that. And then we can go through all of our applique pieces in the instruction booklet and figure out what pieces are for what step. And you can just refer to not only the actual instructions on the guide for the general store, but this is called the foundation, and we're on the general store block. So then you can just flip to your fabric cutting guide here. No, next page. Yes. No, that's embellishments. Yes, this one. Okay. And I'm looking for general store foundation, general store roof foundation. And that is my, I know from the last block, this fabric is for this. And my white star fabric is this one itself. So my building is going to be the white stars, and my foundation is going to be this fabric on the bottom. So now that I have my placement stitch, I have my fabric, I'm going to remove my Heat and Bond light, lay this over the placement stitch, and let it tack down. Okay, that is done, and we can take it over to the craft table and trim this applique out. So grab your favorite pair of applique scissors, and you can trim this foundation piece. Quite easily there. And I'm waiting for my iron to warm up, and I'm gonna go ahead with all my applique pieces. I did put Heat and Bond light on the back. So my iron is warming up right now. And I'm just gonna activate that Heat and Bond light. Okay, and now we'll go back to the machine and do the applique. The next applique is the actual building itself. So there's going to be a large house shaped placement stitch. And then I have my fabric for my house. I'm going to go ahead and remove paper backing and get ready to lay it down. One thing I was questioning is I have Heat and Bond light on the back of here, but that is not as good as at blocking things as the Pellon SF101. So because this is a white fabric, let's see, you can kind of see a hint of blue behind it, but you cannot see the background quilting. That's what I wanted to make sure. You're not going to see all kind of lines and craziness behind it. So we're not. And we just need to cover up our placement stitch because this is kind of a directional fabric. I want to make sure my stars are like straight. There we go. And now we will tack this down. All right, that is done. And so let's go trim it. We have that trim and press. So let's go ahead and move on to the next bit of applique, which I think is the roof. Yeah, so it's the roof line and like a little piece across the front. I'm using this tan brown fabric for this piece. And first let's stitch the placement lines, and then we'll add our applique fabric. Now that that is stitched, we can take it over to the table and trim it and iron it. The next bit of applique is the door. Let's do a placement stitch I have my red fabric for my door. And I forgot to mention earlier that if you are following along for this block, but using a 6x10 hoop or a bit larger hoop, you would do all of these applique pieces exactly the same as I am. Okay. The only parts you're skipping is you don't have to do that placement stitch that we did on the stabilizer and this basting stitch because you should already have your background quilting done and your background fabric basted to your hoop. But from right where I picked up with the foundation and all these pieces of applique, that is all going to be the same. All right, our next piece of applique is the placement for the windows. I have the same window fabric that I used in the firehouse, and I'll be using that one, this fabric on these windows as well. Okay, our windows are finished tacking down. So now we can go and trim them and iron them. Okay, so there are our little windows that I have with my grid line fabric. I really like how that turned out. Now I think some of the next steps, I think we're done with applique for a little while right now. And the next step is some detail in the house. Oh, like the lines that are going to make it look like boards or shiplap on the front of this general store. And they have it as a gray, and I think that will look good. So I have my gray thread that I will load on my machine. Now that that like siding kind of detail is done, the next step is a satin stitch to outline all the windows. And I'm going back to this tan khaki kind of colored thread that I was using for all my applique pieces earlier. So that is going to take a couple minutes to stitch out. While that is stitching out, I went back and looked at the instructions for the double hooping. These are actually pages I didn't print out originally. So I'm looking at the PDF file on my computer. And so you could see with the 6x10, you hoop each block and will get completed in one hooping. For 5x7, stitch the placement line, place the fabric, stitch the tack down, follow the instructions for part 1, and then stitch the registration marks, place the fabric, follow for step 2. And here, this is what I got a little confused about earlier. All the blocks will be hooped vertically for part 1. So whenever you're stitching part 1 for all of the blocks, you will have, your long side going up and down and your narrow side going left to right. Now, only the welcome and the windmill blocks will also be hooped vertically for part 2. However, the fire station, the general store, which is the one we're on today, the pickup truck, the swing and quilt, and the farmhouse blocks will all be hooped horizontally for part 2. So you see, this was our first stitching here. For part 2, we're going to rotate how we actually line it up on the hoop, and that is how we're going to hoop the second part, and it's going to stitch out. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. I was going back and looking myself. So here's some more detailed double hooping instructions where so here, when we're done with the general store like we're doing, we're going to change to a visible thread color, stitch the registration marks, remove the block, trim the excess stabilizer. Then we'll rehoop new piece of stabilizer and stitch those same registration marks. And we're going to use thumbtacks to help us line up the fabric right on top of the stabilizer where it should be. I don't know if you could see that. There's the thumbtack kind of coming through. But I like this method. I think it works really well. The first time I did it was with the Oh So Delightful Sew Along quilt, and I didn't have any thumbtacks. I only had pins, and it was a little more tedious, but I found some thumbtacks the other day. So this time we're going to use thumbtacks. It'll make it a lot easier. But that is how, so this is where the one we're going to do today, that we're going to change the orientation of the block once we put it onto the hoop. So I hope all that makes sense. And again, this is only if you're doing the double hooping method, because your largest embroidery hoop that came with your machine is a 5x7. If you are working in a 6x10 or larger, you can disregard all this double hooping and just keep following, open up the 6x10 design and follow all the steps just like we're doing now and appliquing all the pieces of the block. All right, now that we are done with that window detail, I think the next step is like the window ledges, and they have a gray for that, so that's what I'm going to use. And we'll stitch that up. After this is over, we're going to have that fun vinyl detail over the windows like we did in the firehouse. I think after the window ledges, we're going to use the kind of bluish tinted clear vinyl to go over the windows, and that's going to be tacked down with white thread. So I'm going to get my white thread ready. Okay, now make sure your window vinyl is clean of dust and little pieces of thread. And we're going to place it right over. Let me get, I see a little thread tail. Let me get that first. Okay, we're going to put that right over the already stitched out windows. And we're going to change thread color to white. And we'll tack down those windows and then trim them just like an applique. Okay, we'll take this off the machine, and now we're going to go trim all these little vinyl windows. All right, now all the cutesy little windows are done. I love this detail on all the blocks, you know, all the houses that have windows on this project, on this pillow. So now we're going back to satin stitches, and we're keeping the white thread on. I think we're doing some satin stitching on the sides of the house. Okay, it was actually only little pieces at the top side of the house because there's going to be some fun applique columns, I think, here that we're going to use the white faux leather. I think it's going to be super cute. But next, oops, cut the thread. Okay. Next, we are stitching the porch railings, and I'm going back to my kind of tan khaki color for that. Okay, the porch railings are done, and the next detail is the lights on the front porch, which actually is what is going to get filled as the light in the front porch. And so I'm going to use a yellow for that. Okay, so now that the fill of the light is done, we need to go to black. It's actually going to outline the what you call front porch lights, lanterns or whatever. Okay, my thread came undone. So let's fix that. And I really didn't get much stitching done at all, so I might just go ahead and back up to the beginning of this step. Looks like I have a little bit of nesting going on. Oh, I see it. It's happening above this red line there. And I got some fuzzies on the other porch light I might need to stitch over the end of the last couple stitches of this porch light so that it doesn't come up. So let me go ahead and back up. And let's stitch those out again. And I'm going to keep an eye on my thread and see if it keeps nesting. I might be time to change the needle. I did okay there. Let's see how it does now. All right, I have a little thread tail. Let me fix. And we are going back to white thread. And we're going to start to stitch the columns or pillar detail on the front porch. And this is an applique, but it's going to be a bean stitch applique. And we're using embroidery leather that came with the embellishment kit. So if I pull these are all my applique pieces I have left. I have 3 pieces of embroidery leather, and I'm almost positive it's going to be the biggest one. And that's going to be for our pillars. And I think one of these is for the front steps. And I don't know what the other one is for. I'll have to check. It might be, each step might be its own applique. And then we have some applique glitter for the little fireworks up at the top. And that's going to be in our second hooping that we'll use those. All right, so the placement line for the pillars is done. To be honest, we probably didn't really need to stitch the placement line because we could see that the width of the house and where the pillars are going to be. But now I'm going to place my embroidery leather, and I'm kind of hold it for the first couple stitches with my fingers far away from the needle. And it is going to do a combination tack down and finishing stitch since this is a bean stitch applique. And while I was thinking, I remember why we got 2. I want to say this particular block has an embellishment that says general store, but we stitch it in a separate hooping. So let me see. One is going to be for the steps, and the other one is going to be for the general store sign. Well, you can see it right here. You see that little sign? That's going to go on the roof of the porch, but we're going to make that with embroidery leather and a separate hooping and put it on after. So I have 2 pieces. So we need general store stairs. The size is 3.5 by 1.5. So I think that's this one. And if I look at the embellishment, Do I have the embellishments? No. Yeah, embellishments. Oh, I was looking at the right thing. General store dimensional sign. 3.5 by 1.5. See, they're the same size. I didn't cut them to be the same size. So let me, oh no, one's 3.5 and one's 3. So this one's a 1/2 inch longer. That one is for the stairs. So I'm gonna leave that one there. I'm gonna save this one in my envelope. That is going to be for the dimensional sign after. Okay, that is done stitching. So now we will go and trim those little pillars. Okay, there is that nice porch pillar detail in the faux leather. Really like it. And now you can see those little front porch lanterns up close now that we're here. But let's go back to the machine and let's see what's next. I think, oh, I already loaded my tan thread, and now we're going to do, this is going to be a long satin stitch of the roof, all the roof detail and covering up our roof lines applique. So I got my tan khaki colored thread loaded on, and we will just let this stitch out. I'm wondering though, I see it is going to go right on top of these pillars. Let me make sure I got those trimmed tight, because those will be covered with a satin stitch at the top. So I don't want little white bits poking out above that. So let me trim just those top ones. And there's going to be another satin stitch at the bottom of the pillars too. So make sure your top and your bottom of your pillars are trimmed close to that stitch line, because they will get covered with a satin stitch. That's it. Okay, now that the little green detail for the potted plant is done, I am loading back on that tan khaki color, and that's going to be the pots for the plant. Okay, now that the pots are done, there's a flower in each pot, and they have one flower blue and one flower red. I'm going to do both of mine blue. I like things to be symmetrical. So that is personal choice. You can make your flowers in your pot whatever colors you want, and you can make them different colors if you want. Have a little thread tail. I'm going to trim. Okay. And stitch that first flower. And then I'll also stitch the second flower. Okay, now that the flowers are done, Next is a satin stitch at the bottom of the porch. And I think this kind of helps outline the foundation. Okay, so that is the foundation satin stitch is done. And I think this is our last bit for this hooping of the general store, or this is going to be the last bit of the general store section before we start doing the fireworks and everything up top. So I am changing to white thread, and we're doing the applique for the stairs. So first is a placement stitch, which is probably not really needed because I could see where the stairs are supposed to go. Okay, and then we'll take our piece of faux leather, put that right on top. And I'm going to hold it here in the corner, or you can tape it. And now it's going to do the combination bean stitch, tack down stitch, also a bean finishing stitch. And there is actually one more stitch after this, and it is the registration mark, and it says do it in a visible thread. So I'm going to do it in this yellow, but these will get cut out after we're done. Okay, we're done with the stairs. I'm not going to take it off and trim it right now though, because we only have one more step left, and that is those registration marks, which I am doing in a bright visible color, yellow, and this is going to help guide me for my next hooping. But we will take these stitches out, so it doesn't matter what color you do them in. You want something you can see. Okay, so we are now finished with the first hooping, the farmhouse. If you are not following along this double hooping method and are doing all this in one hoop, then you would not have these registration placement lines. Your next step would be the fireworks, which will be the second half of our little tutorial here. So all I need to do is trim this and take it out the hoop. Okay, I've trimmed my stairs, and the block looks very, very cute. Let's see, I see some thread tails I'm gonna clean up. I got my registration marks. We'll take those out later. Everything looks good. We're gonna pop this out of the hoop and trim the stabilizer on the back. Okay, so we are done with the bottom half of this block, and next will be hooping the second half. Hi everyone, I'm back. Unfortunately, right after I finished that last step of the first hooping of the general store, we had a whole bunch of stuff going on at the house. I had to take the girls to dancing, so it is a new day here, but not for you. So we can just move on to the next step. So let's jump over to the craft table, and you can see where we left off. I have my 5x7 hoop ready to go with some muslin for the next step, and I have my block right here. So the first step is actually to bring this just the hoop over to the machine, load the second design, and we're going to stitch some registration marks. So let's go do that. And let's see, I still have my first design on there. So let me go back. What if I hit return? No, let me just go back home. Okay, embroidery. I have them on my USB stick right now. Okay, so here was the general store here, and here is the, the fireworks top portion. And I'm gonna hit embroider. I still have that yellow thread on there, which is good. That's nice. I can see that well. So the first step is just those same kind of little corner registration marks that we did on our block. And you are going to want to stitch those and grab some thumb tacks if you have them. If you don't, there's other things that we can use. I actually found some thumbtacks, but they're not flat on the back, so they're not going to be as helpful as I thought they were going to be. But if you have thumbtacks that are actually flat on the back, that is going to be the easiest way to line this up. So it may be hard to see for y'all, but I have these little registration marks here and here. I probably should have did it in a darker color so y'all could see it better. Yeah, because yellow is not as bright as I thought it was going to be. Can you see that little yellow L there and there? That's what we're working with. And what you're going to want to do, ooh, this would be a good time to use my new mats I got. So this is not necessary, but I did just get these. Reen from Embroidery Garden, I did one of her designs recently on a sip and stitch, and it would have been really helpful to have these hoop and press pads when I was doing her design. And so she texted me after. She's like, "You don't have any?" I was like, "No, I've been wanting to get them, and I haven't. They've been on my wish list for a long time." And she said, "I'm gonna send you some." So that was really sweet of her. So she came up with this idea and designed them, and then she collaborated with Dime to actually manufacture them. So that's really an exciting thing to do. So this is a set. I think this set is for um, it's meant for multi-needle machines, but she said it would work in my flatbed machines too. So 5x7, I have 8x8 and 8x12. But so they're wool on one side and they're grippy on another. But what I'm gonna do is flip my hoop over, look at my registration marks here and here. And I'm gonna put a thumbtack, like I said, mine are not as helpful because they have this back on them. But I'm gonna put a thumbtack right. Um, Actually, I don't want to press through my wool mat, right? I just want to get it in there. Okay, right in the corner of those marks. So let's see. Can y'all see? So there's the little L, and I'm putting my thumbtack right in the corner. And here's the other side, the little L, thumbtack right in the corner. Okay, maybe this will help because what I'll do is this. So then my thumbtack is going down here and the rest of my hoop is supported by the little pad. So I have these thumbtacks now sticking up out of my stabilizer, my hoop. Okay, and I want them to stick straight up. Like I said, I'm going to go to the store today and probably get some flat ones just to have in here. Because Kimberbell uses this method for a lot of their double hooping situations. All right, and let's think about this. We are stitching on the top part of our block. So, and here are my L marks. So I want to put it this way on my hoop, and it's going to end up stitching right here. So now I'm going to look for those same registration marks on the back of my block. And I'm going to try to get my thumbtack to go right through the corner of each of those. So this all may be better just holding this by hand. So I could see right where it's going. So I want that thumbtack to go right there. Now, the first time I did this, I just used a pin. That's a crooked one. I used a pin um, and stuck it from underneath. And I'm wondering if that might be better because these thumbtack the metal pieces of the thumbtack are pretty as thin as a pin is. So I'm gonna go put a pin in the same little holes I just made. May find some pins that are actually straight though. Most of mine are crooked. Okay, so there. The only problem with the pins is they're so long they don't stay straight. All right, and then this is what we want to do, right? So I'll take the first one and let me see, there's my little corner. I'm gonna stick my pin through it. I think I missed it by I need to move it over just a smidge. Okay, so right in the corner, that one's done. Now on this one, it's kind of it's hard to fold this because this is so stiff and thick now. So I'm just moving it around the best that I can. There we go. And for these pins, it's important I do have them pushed all the way through and straight up now, because now that's really where the placement needs to be. So this is kind of hard to see, isn't it? Y'all see the pins sticking out? They're going through the back of my stabilizer, right in that corner, through the bottom of my quilt, right in that corner, and coming out the top. And if you do that, that should help you, like now where this is on floating on the stabilizer is right where it should be to stitch out those what you call fireworks in the right spot. So I'm gonna add some glue here to try to adhere that in place. And then once I have that right where I want it, I'm not poking myself with my pins. I'm rubbing my fingers on that vinyl in the windows. I could take these pins out now. All right, so now carefully, we're going to bring this over to the machine and stitch the next step, which is some of the fireworks. Now I'm gonna have to pull this up to slide on the hoop, and I'm gonna keep my hand over this because I really only have it on there with some glue. I could put some pins in there. Maybe I'll do that off to the side over here just to make sure. This doesn't move on accident. I can even put one here. There we go. So now that's not going to move when I put this on my machine. Okay, so the next is another basting stitch. And I like to use my water soluble thread for that step. So let me take this yellow off and put this on. Okay, and thread my needle and go. Lower presser foot and stitch. And I put those pins like way out the way, so there's no way that even with a basting stitch should it come close to it. Yeah. Now, okay, I'm looking at the picture and I'm looking at where it's stitched. That at first I was worried, but it looks right because the registration marks are here and the basting stitch went like right close to this registration mark, but over here it's like this much away. But looking at the design on the screen, that's what it's supposed to look like. So that means I have it in the right spot. Okay, so it keeps going back and forth between. Oh, wait, I think our first steps are going to be the applique for the little rocket. And I definitely want to take my water soluble off. I'm done with that. And let's see, it has red for the little fuse, and then white. I wonder if I should do metallic for these. What did I do for the first block? I think I used normal red and white, and then I did metallic for just the fireworks bit. So this is what we're making here. We're going to do this, the fuse, the little star, and then we'll applique the rocket. So I'm going to do the same thing like I did for the welcome block. And what color red did I use? This one or the other one? I think this one. Okay. And we're going to applique with that glitter. So that does have adhesive on the back. So I'm going to go warm up my little iron while this is starting to stitch. So this is just the little fuse. That's only a couple stitches. And then the little like light at the end of the fuse is white. Okay. And stitch that. Go, y'all see a little closer there. And then next is the placement for the glitter. Doesn't matter what color you do, so I'm just going to go ahead and stitch that in white. And let's see, I still have some white what do I have over here? I thought I had applique. Oh, here, from the welcome block. I'm gonna, remember how our pieces are cut way bigger than what we need. So I can definitely get another like 2 rockets out of this from the first one. But I do want to go, they kind of do the opposite. If you're doing white glitter, they like the outlines in red thread. And if you're doing red glitter, the outlines in white thread. Now it's totally optional. You can do white on white and red on red, but I do think it's fun to do the opposite, the contrasting colors so that they stand out more. Okay, so I have my little placement step, and I'm just going to put my applique glitter. You can tape it in place, or I'm going to hold it far away. And once it gets those couple stitches, good. Okay, and then let's go trim that. Get that little tail out of there. There we go. Okay, we can go and trim that. Okay, and then once it's trimmed, you can put an iron on it, and I usually like to have something in between the glitter and the iron, so I'm gonna just use some muslin, a pressing cloth or piece of parchment paper. It's good. Okay, and now let's go do the second bit of applique. And first we stitch the placement stitch. Doesn't matter what color we stitch this in. But I am going to switch to white for the actual bean finishing stitch so that it's white thread on red glitter. Okay, I got my spot. Wait, I need to thread my needle. Placement's done, so I'm just going to hold my red glitter right on top. And let me get my stiletto for this one since this piece is so little. Okay, take this off and go trim it. All right, and then you can iron and activate that adhesive that's on the back of the applique glitter. If you wanted to, you could also wait and just have both pieces trimmed before you even place the iron there. You get them both at the same time. All right, so that's the only bit of applique for the second hooping. All the rest is just going to be the fireworks, and I'm going to use my metallic thread. And the first one is red. Then it goes to white, which I'm going to use the silver for that. And then gold is last. So this is my metallic thread that I use for my other um, blocks and will continue to use for all the rest. But this is optional. If you don't have metallic thread, by all means, just use whatever colors you want for your fireworks. Metallic thread can be finicky. So, but so far I've had decent luck with this brother one. But I know the one that everyone recommends is King Star, which is on my wish list. Let's see, there it came out already. So I just got to watch and make sure it's feeding off the spool good and not getting hung up on anything. Let me back up a couple stitches and restart. And I'm just going to watch it now and make sure it's feeding nicely off the spool. Looks okay. Nope. Oh, now my bobbin's almost empty. Okay, cut. Get a new bobbin. Luckily, that was just the first couple stitches. And we're going to load a new bobbin, going in counterclockwise. When you pull the thread, it's turning counterclockwise. Run it through the thread path. I like to pull a good 12 inches or so, just to really make sure that the bobbin tension is set. Okay, once you have new bobbin on, I can hit OK on my screen, put my hoop back on. But what I'm going to do is, because we had just started stitching this, I'm just going to back up those few stitches. But normally if I'm in the middle of a satin stitch, what I'll do is I'll cut it when it says to replace the bobbin, reload it, put everything back in, and then I will back up about 20 to 30 stitches so that I have some overlap. And usually you can't tell at all. And that locks in the stitches from where I left off. Okay, I'm just getting back to right where it started there. Still got thread in my needle. Okay, let's try this again. Nope, there is no thread in my needle. Is there? But I don't see any stitches. Let's keep watching. Yeah, there's thread there. Okay, looks like it's working. Keep your fingers crossed that it continues to work. Okay, the red bit is done. Now I'm using silver and replacing white on my thread chart here. Okay, my thread came out of my little hook at the top and it got hooked on something else. So it came out of the needle. Okay, it just coming right out of that thread path. Let's see if I do this instead. Okay. Let me lift my needle and thread it again. And let me back up a few stitches. It was just starting a new one. Okay, great. Let's try this now. Okay, done with silver. Loading gold. Okay, it looks like the needle came unthreaded. So let's try that again. I'm having a hard time pulling this through the thread path. I think that's why it's getting pulled out of the needle. Okay, everything looks like it's flowing correctly. Not always say. Yeah. Okay, that looks like where it needs to be. See if it stays threaded now. I just saw the thread come out. Like I saw it happen. When it cuts, it's not, I guess it's cutting what it thinks is a tail long enough, but it ends up getting sucked back in this direction. So it's once it starts stitching, the tail isn't long enough and it's not going down with it. So that's probably what my issue is with the metallic thread right now. It's not the thread path, nothing's going on with the thread path. It's not getting caught up anywhere. Oh wait, we need to raise the presser foot. All right. It's just struggling to stay in the needle after it gets trimmed. This tail needs to be a decent length. This part right here, the tail is a little short, but long enough. Okay, it's staying in. That last gold bit did not stitch very well at all. I think I'm going to see on the thread where it's pulling it a little tight, not, let's see. And try and just stitch that one little satin column again. And see if I can keep this thread from getting pulled tight. There we go. Let's try that. It looks slightly better. I think it's just because it's such a thin satin column. All right, and now we're on the last step, which is the little blue eyelets for the fairy lights to go through. Okay, so we are all done stitching now, and it came out very cute. Let me hold this away, y'all could see it. And now the fireworks are all on top of the general store, and now we just need to clean things up and trim the block. Take these pins out and let me warm up my iron. I guess I'll just use my little one because we really got to navigate around some things here because we're not going to be pressing anywhere close to this vinyl, this leather. Be careful of the metallic thread. All right, so we're just going to unhoop and trim the stabilizer. Be careful to only cut the stabilizer and not your block fabric on accident. Looks like somebody's been using my good fabric scissors to cut something that is not fabric. Ooh, I know some little girls that are going to be in trouble. Luckily, I am going to a quilt shop in a little while to take Elise for her next sewing class she's going to. She went to a sewing class. Is that last week already? Last week. And she learned how to make this adorable little drawstring bag. And she loved it. She's like, I want to go back. So today they're having a class on how to make a headband with like a goes all the way around under your hair and then on top, and it's got like the elastic bit to go under your hairline to hold it in place and like a band to go on top of it. She's excited. It's going to be fun. She's not going to be excited when I wake her up, but she's still sleeping right now. But look, I'm going to a fabric store today, so I might. There's like glue on here. I can see it. Oh, I'm gonna beat their butt. I don't know. These weren't expensive. These are from Walmart for like less than $10, but they cut nice. I'll see what they have at the store today. Anywho, we trimmed our stabilizer. And I'm going to carefully try and iron around really the edges of my block is where I'm focusing so that it lays flat. I got a little wrinkle going on down here just for trimming. You know, you want it to be nice and flat. This one might be a little tougher, and I think it's that way because we had to do the clear blue tiles kind of method of pre-quilting it. So it all didn't get basted down in the beginning like it normally does. So this one I find is a little more wrinkly than the other blocks I've done. So just be mindful of that if you're working in a 5x7 hoop. It might be a little trickier to trim, especially this little bottom edge. All right, I'm gonna grab some water and we're gonna get rid of these basting stitches and we're gonna trim out, cut out those registration marks. All right, so just grab some water and a Q-tip and rub it. If you use the water soluble thread like I did, just rub it into place and it will dissolve that thread. If you used, you know, any other thread, regular white thread, whatever, then just try to snip it somewhere along that basting stitch and you should be able to pull it out. With my case is dissolving the thread and I'm just going to pull out the bobbin since I use regular bobbin thread. I'm wondering, and finding that I've had to do a lot more water. Just add some water this time. Okay. And now I could see where the bobbin thread is and I could just pull it up. Only case with this one now is it's going underneath. Probably should have removed this bobbin, this basting stitch before we did the next hooping. Okay, that should be all right. Maybe the water will actually help me get some of these wrinkles out before I trim it. Okay, oh, one thing I did forget to get out is those registration marks here. Registration marks are not that bad to get out, but the little knots at the front and the back are a little pain in the butt. Okay, this all seems good now. I got those registration marks, got all my basting stitches. I got it as about as flat as I can. And so now I think we are ready to trim the block. So let me get my rotating cutting mat and my orange pop ruler and my rotary cutter. All right, now the cutting instructions for this block is going to be similar to the fire truck block, where you want a 1/4 inch between the bottom of your ruler and the bottom of your steps. So that's where you know you have it placed in the right way, and then you want everything to be centered, of course. So I've been typically trimming them from the back because I like to see the batting is really a good guide for me to see that I have it centered, because I could see I have the same amount of space between the batting here and here. Now stabilizers kind of throw me off on this one because normally I only see the batting right here. Let's do that. And it's also a little hard to tell from the back that I'm a 1/4 inch. So I think I am gonna try it from the front this time. Okay, that looks good about the space from the bottom of the step to the bottom of the ruler. Now it's just eyeballing the rest. I think that looks about right. Okay, so now let me make sure nothing's gonna bump my rotating cutting mat when I turn it. Yeah, I don't have anything in the way. I'm gonna hold this in place. I'm gonna start on the left side. Watch my fingers. Make sure I have a good cut there. Okay, and then not move anything, but rotate the mat. I'm going twice over it because sometimes I don't get my corners good. So it's more about my corners than my cutting, just to make sure they detach all the way. So let's see if I did a good job. Take that off and then voila. I think that's the best one I've done yet. Yay. And now we are officially done, at least with this portion of the general store. And we did it all in 5x7 hoops. That's pretty cool. A little more work, but you get a beautiful result. So now you know if your largest hoop is 5x7, you got this. It'll take a little bit more time, but it's going to come out just as beautiful um, as if you had a bigger hoop. So very happy with this. And we will move on in the next video to the next block. But eventually we're going to have to take a video to make some of these embellishment bits. So you see in the picture here, they have that general store, they have that flag. I think the flag will get added on, but we need to make the general store bit. I don't know about the flag. I have to look at there's going to be some instructions in here for the extra hoopings for the embellishment stuff eventually. Let's see. That is, okay, then we have the quilt. We have the pickup truck one, then the tree with the swing, then the quilt, then here. When we get to the farmhouse, you do have to make the little pennants before you start stitching it, because there's going to be a step where we're going to add the pennants to it. I thought it was going to be like that for the general store, but apparently not. But when we make this, I'm going to go ahead and make the general store sign as well. I think we'll just take a video to make all the embellishments that need to be done in a separate hooping. I don't think I printed out all the instructions. So yeah, I'll go back and make a plan. So before we do the farmhouse, we'll make the embellishments, but we can move on to the next two blocks. So my plan is, now that we've done all three different kind of hooping methods, we've done where everything is done in the hoop, the background quilting and the design, and it fits in whatever hoop you're working. That was the first video. The second video is specific to a 6x10 hoop, because this block, if you're doing it like I did in the first video, it doesn't actually fit in a 6x10 hoop just because the background quilting, but I tweaked it, made it fit. That was video number 2. Today, well, block number 2. Today, block number 3, we did everything in a 5x7 hoop. So for the sake of time, for the rest of the blocks, I'm going to do them all in a 6x10 hoop. So I'm going to use the method I did in block number 2, the firehouse, just for the sake of time, so that we can get them done. And we'll take a video to make embellishments. Yeah. So trying to get this done quickly. I was supposed to have more videos published by now, but you know, life, kids, summer, all that good stuff. So, okay, that's it for today. And it came out very cute. I like it a lot. And fingers crossed, I'm gonna get another block made this week and publish it, hopefully. Hopefully, don't hold me to it, because y'all know I'm all scatterbrained. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video on making the general store block for the Main Street Celebration Kimberbell bench pillow. And this is now video 4 in the series. If you missed any of the other ones, they're all going to be on my YouTube channel. There's a playlist for all of them. And then I have a page dedicated on my website, carlybell.com. That's going to have all the info on the sew along, including links to all the supplies. and all the videos. I'm gonna have them all on that page so you could click on them there as well. So that's it for today. Next time I will see you, we will make the cute little truck at the gas station block. And like I said, we're going to continue and just use a 6x10 hoop for all of the rest of the blocks. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.